This program is brought to you by Rogers Xfinity, connecting you to more of what you love. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Welcome everyone. RTV Sports Rap now in the month of December as we continue towards not only the World Juniors, Canadian rosters out on December 8th. I can't wait to talk about the World Juniors and how we look at Canada after their dismal showing at the last World Juniors. And this year, at least, it's in Minnesota. So some Canadians will get the chance to go and really support the team over in the U.S. And of course, when or if the U.S. play the Canadians, that'll always be a spirited rivalry. Spencer Byers alongside me, JC Coots, Cajun, Ruth, Annie Cassim. Thank you for joining me, gentlemen, here on RTV Sports Rap. And JC, we're going to lead off with, obviously in the sports world, it's been everything turmoil, everything different. And you look at the NFL picture especially, and teams are all over the place. You look at the Pats right now, the first team to 11 wins after beating the Giants on Monday Night Football. Teams, the Chiefs, Ravens right now on the outside looking into the playoff picture. I believe the Ravens may still have the division spot right now, but very very thinly in the AFC North. So JC, through now, I believe 14 weeks of the NFL season, are there any teams that have really surprised you that they've kept their hot starts to now?
Yeah, the Bears. Like, holy man. I think we're all realistic sports fans, and that we're just waiting for the Bears to be the Bears and just choke the rest of the way and lose every other game. And they still haven't done it yet. They still keep winning somehow. So, I mean, good for them. It's been one of the better stories of the season so far, is seeing them do so well. I say that very painfully as a Green Bay Packers fan, to see the Bears right now on top of the NFC North. But hey, we're hopefully nipping at their heels. We had a big Thanksgiving win over Detroit, so things are starting to look a little bit better in Green Bay, but they've got a long way to go to prove themselves to be contenders at this point. Elsewhere, I think the Patriots are a great story. A team that last year lost 13 games and now is on a 10-game winning streak. Something like that hasn't happened in 26 years. So they've been another big surprise. And all of a sudden, like, winning football is back in New England again. Like, is this the start of the post-Brady new era of a dynasty? Are they just that good at football in New England that it doesn't matter if Brady's not there? We'll have to wait and see. Aside from that, really, I think that my honorable mention would be the Dallas Cowboys, who at the start of the season, when they traded Parsons, we thought, well, that's it. They're already throwing in the towel. And then somehow, even with an injury to CeeDee Lamb, they're starting to win games. And then all of a sudden they get to the trade deadline and they're buyers, and they've just, I think they've impressed a lot of people. I don't know if this means anything, to be honest with you, but it certainly is surprising to see what the Cowboys, who nobody gave much of a chance to at the start of the year, are all of a sudden over 500 and right behind the Philadelphia Eagles, who they beat last week. How did that happen? But clearly, the Philly had the food poison turkey before the game, because that was a weird one.
Are we talking about the Bears, or are we talking about the Cowboys one? Because they lost them both.
I mean, Cage, depending on who you look at right now in the NFL, the Lions right now are out of the playoffs. The Ravens are tied for their division lead, which is the only way they make the playoffs, because the wild cards are stocked with teams that are 8-4, 9-4, and better. So right now, some of these teams that, like the Chiefs, for example, they're 6-6. They're trailing a 10-2 Broncos team who is one of the top teams in the AFC, and the next wild card team's 8-4. So the Chiefs have to find a way to not only jump a wild card team, they're not going to get the division at this point. Like, that's a fever dream to think they're going to jump the Broncos.
Let's just say Taylor Swift won't save them this time around.
I mean, Travis Kelce can't save them. I don't think Taylor Swift has a prayer. But Cajun, looking at some of the NFL stories for you, who's really surprised you from that hot start to now?
I would say two teams. The Cowboys, but for a different reason. It's not because, and now that this might be sad to say, but what had happened to Marshawn Nyland kind of brought this Cowboys team together. Because mind you, that game before Nyland died, rest his soul, was when they got walloped by the Cardinals. at home. Ever since then, they had that bye week. That happened, and they've just kind of united and put on a heck of a run thus far. Will it lead to a playoff appearance? Who knows? But this is kind of like a different Cowboys team in terms of like, high expectations and whatnot, and then it all comes crashing down. No, they're riding based off of unity and just riding that to wherever this leads them. So it's kind of a surprise in the teams that they've beat in the process, coming back from down 21-0 against Philly, going up against a desperate Chiefs team, which you would think in any other year the Chiefs would take that and run away with it, but instead it was the Cowboys that won. So it's a great story what's going on in Dallas. Despite an injured CeeDee Lamb, I think someone who's really stepped up has been George Pickens. Throughout, he's been consistent throughout, and I'm excited to see what happens and how they can kind of do something with that for the rest of the way. The one other team that surprised me, the Houston Texans, and they're riding that red hot defense. They did it against Buffalo. They made a statement against Indianapolis. And that division's still up for grabs too. How much were they down to Jacksonville? 26-0? Ever since that game, it's just been all systems go for Houston, and you just get CJ Stroud back. You went on this run with Davis Mills as your starting quarterback, and then coming back, having CJ Stroud back. That defense is always going to give Houston a chance. If they can have like a somewhat league average offense, who knows? They can surprise some people.
26 points in that fourth quarter to beat the Jags, and they've won 3 straight from that. So a 4-game winning streak for the Texans, as you mentioned there, Cajun. I do want to mention some teams that I think surprisingly are bad. The Minnesota Vikings, even going from Sam Darnold, who's now in Seattle, to J.J. McCarthy, who was going to be the day one starter before he got hurt in preseason last year. And he has not been the guy yet. We'll see if that turns out for J.J. McCarthy. Among many young quarterbacks to be struggling this season around the NFL. Just like Cam Ward, obviously, with the, I believe, 1-11 Tennessee Titans right now. That team was not good coming into the season, and sadly, the first overall pick has not changed that fortune at all, which I'll say I didn't expect, because I think teams are built a lot more than just the quarterback. Yeah, having a franchise one helps, but even with Drake May, who's going to be at this point an MVP frontrunner, maybe definitely one of the odds-on favorites with the New England Patriots turnaround. Like, I think a big argument for that team is also Mike Vrabel, who was a former Bill Belichick player. He played for the Bill Belichick Patriots, has now come back as a coach, and I won't say back under the regime, but it's definitely like Belichick light. Like, that's definitely the coaching style you have to expect he has and what he had in Tennessee. So I wonder if it's kind of like what happened with the Eagles when they fired Andy Reid, and then they had some years with Chip Kelly and they struggled, and then they brought in Doug Peterson and an offensive coordinator from Andy Reid and go on to win a Super Bowl. Is that the way this goes? It's they fire Bill Belichick because things weren't going well. It was the end of an era. They have some years where they try to figure out who they are with Gerard Mayo. And now they're bringing Mike Vrabel, former player of the team, former, I'll say, disciple of Belichick. And it's all working back out again with their new franchise quarterback at this point in Drake May. And now, JC, I'll go back to you because I'm interested to see, who do you think right now are your favorites to win it all? Now, obviously, we're going into week 14, and playoffs obviously are still very much malleable, but a lot of teams right now are having strangleholds on it. All the wild cards are at least 2 games ahead for everybody. Some divisions are a little bit closer, but you'd expect the Ravens will beat the Steelers for that division, and as you look around the NFL. So are there any teams right now you think are head and shoulders the favorites going into eventually the Super Bowl season?
I mean, there's so much football left to play. There are so many injuries that could still happen that could completely debilitate a team at the worst possible point of the season. So, yeah, it's hard to say. I don't feel like we can really truly despite their record and all the great things you said about Mike Vrabel and Drake May, call the Patriots serious contenders just because there is that youth there at your quarterback position. And when you get into the NFL playoffs and it's one game winner take all, it's a much different scenario to be in. So a great season, they'll get some pretty good experience when they get into the playoffs, but I don't think they can go all the way. Boy, oh boy. When you look over at the other side, I think maybe the Rams potentially could be serious candidates. I don't think the Bears will be serious candidates just because of the same factor. It's too much inexperience, and you're not drawing on any recent playoff experience, so it's going to be a little bit tough once the real game starts. I mean, you always want to think that Philadelphia is going to be in there because they do have the experience, but it's just been such a up and down year for them. It's going to be interesting, but I'm sure that they will find a way. And I would love to say the Buffalo finds a way finally, because you know who's not going to be standing in their way is Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. So I will always say my second favorite team is Buffalo, because I grew up a big Doug Flutie fan, so that they have a special place in my heart. So let's go Bills. It's their year.
What about you, Cajun? Going into Week 14, who do you see as the favorites going into the Super Bowl in January, February?
I think this is one of those years where it's truly every team for them. It's truly like out in the open who would win. Like, there's no at least in the AFC last year, like, you kind of knew Casey was gonna get there at some point. Same thing with the Eagles. You knew there were two contenders out there. That it was going to be on a crash collision course. You can't say the same this year. Like, the cream of the crop right now, like, you could say, like, Patriots, Broncos, based off a regular season, but can you trust them when the postseason really matters? Not sure you can, but at the same time, playoff teams that used to be there in like the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Lions, they're on the outside. A lot of them are on the outside looking in. So you would think, as JC said, a team like Buffalo could take advantage of it, but they've been struggling too. So I think it's just, this is going to be one of those years in which I don't think youth is really going to matter as much, because there's not going to be a ton of the experienced teams are either on the outside looking in or really struggling right now. But if I had to choose one, give me the team that's been consistent. Give me the Patriots.
Hey, we have JC say, hey, put the brakes on the Patriots, and Cajun says, I'll gas, no brakes. Give me them Pats to take it back and give us back another dynasty after they just got out of the first one.
It's just one of those.
There wasn't enough time, Cajun. There wasn't enough time in between. People are not ready for the Pats to be good again. They aren't ready yet. They just aren't ready.
It's just one of those years in which there isn't really a full-on, like, a front runner. It's not.
See, and honestly, Cage, I look around the NFL and I'm looking for that team with all that experience. Like the Eagles, they've looked fragile. They looked fragile last year, though, around this time, and they were able to figure it out. They look fragile this year, though, again. And then my Niners look good. Some games look not great, other games, and injuries have plagued them all year and continue to. Nick Bosa's done. Kittle's been hurt. They're going to cut, looks like Brandon Ayuk, who hasn't even played this year off the ACL tear from last year. Brock Purdy's been hurt. I don't know. I'll say I don't know. The Seahawks, they're really good, but they just signed Sam Darnold. That's not an experienced team with winning in the postseason. I'd say, JC, your Packers, I wouldn't say they're exactly experienced at winning in the postseason with this new regime of LaFleur and Jordan Love.
And
you also look at...
too.
You look at the Indianapolis Colts. they just got Daniel Jones, Steichen. He's kind of a new coach. They're not experienced in winning. The Bears aren't experienced in winning in the playoffs. Neither obviously are the Pats with this new regime. Like, other than maybe the Ravens and the Bills, who right now are in the AFC, have a lot of the experience. And then in the NFC, the Rams are really, and that Rams and the Eagles are the two teams I look at with like experience. They've won it. They've been there. They've kind of done that thing. They are used to that playoff experience. So does that play out like you say, JC? Is that going to be a big factor as we get closer and closer to January, February, or is it going to be some of these young teams that, don't know how to win, but don't know how to lose either, aren't scared and play free, if you will, because they don't know what the experience is like, or do they get uptight and, does the result fall the other way? Do the experience of Matthew Stafford's had a great year, even though back injury, is he going to play? Is he not going to play? And then comes back and hasn't missed a beat, has 32 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, and has been one of the best players in the NFL this year for the Rams, and the big reason why they're right now leading the NFC West. So a lot of unknown in the NFL. And again, that's why this year's been so interesting, is because everyone's kind of beaten everybody. It's been very up and down. No
the Rams
team
just lost to the Panthers.
Yes, yeah, they did. And, there's so much a parity right now in the NFL that it's hard to see a team you're like, man, that team is going to make it. Like, obviously, Cajun, you mentioned it. Last year, Philadelphia felt destined with Saquon Barkley having his historic year. That team just felt destined, put a pin in it. They're going to make the Super Bowl some way, somehow, even with how they looked near the end of the NFL season. They end up making it. They play the Chiefs. They end up winning it in rather decisive fashion. They benched their starters, I think, in the fourth quarter because of how big they were up in the Super Bowl.
They did a lot of NFL fans a favor.
Yeah, that they did with the alleged, does Taylor Swift does Travis Kelce propose to Taylor Swift on the field? We'll never know. We'll never know if that was ever going to be a thing for you betting people on the Super Bowl. Many different types of prop bets that I know Cajun was in on throughout. Now, I do want to now go to the Olympics, something we haven't talked about a lot because it's still quite a little bit away, as teams are naming preliminary rosters, and Matthew Schaefer gets added to the testing pool, meaning he can now go to the Olympics, and some other guys have been added to testing pools around the NHL. I believe Cole Hudson was added to the American preliminary roster with the 90 guy short list. But it's not about the team. It's not about who we think is going to make it, who we think won't be making it, who gets snubbed, what have you. It's the physical ice surface. Now, there's a rule inside the Olympics. Let's open up the curtain here a little bit. The Olympics has a rule where a arena or rink must be used a full year before being allowed to be used in the Olympics, to ensure that the venue's good, to make sure the concessions work, bathrooms work, seating's good, the floor, the playing surface is good, all of that good stuff. Now, not only is the brand new arena they're building in Milan for the upcoming Olympics not finished yet, it will not be finished till around January 10th to middle of January. That's about a month before the NHL players are supposed to take the ice and play at the Olympics. Not only that, it has now come out, as of this recording, that the arena, the physical playing surface, is going to be 3 to 4 feet smaller than an NHL ice rink. Now, for those of you who may not know, Olympic and or European ice is usually bigger. That's why European players have a problem coming to North America, JC, right? Is Russian players, Swedish players, Finnish players play on a bigger ice surface. Their arenas are physically bigger. The playing surface is bigger. So they have a problem condensing themselves to an NHL size ice. Now it's going to be even smaller. It'll be about roughly 2 to 4 feet smaller than an NHL rink. So that'll cause even more problems and even more interesting conundrums. So I'll now go to you, Cage, to begin us off. It's becoming a point where if I was an NHL owner, NHL GM, NHL coach, I'd be telling some of my guys, hey, I don't want you to go, because not only could you get hurt and end our season, the playing surface is not going to be tested well. It's not going to be the right size. There just seems to be a lot more going into this than just, hey, NHL players are going to go play in the Olympics. It's now becoming a lot more political, I think, than previously imagined.
I think what this comes down to is player safety. And if it's based off of player safety, it should make sense for NHL players not to go, because it's not being tested. It's not going to be tested on rigorously. And what's the point if you're an NHL player, or if you're an NHL owner, or if you're an NHL coach? Now, if there were safety implements, measures even put into place, and that's a different story. So I think player safety is kind of being put at the back burner of this. And you're going to see a lot of players just start to back off because it's like it's too much of a risk. It's too much of a risk at the end of the day.
Now, the 2010 Olympics and the 2022 Olympics, which didn't have NHLers, used NHL standard ice. Previous tournaments before 2010 used European ice, which was a little bit bigger than NHL standard ice. So, JC, I'll go to you now. With the dimensions being smaller than the guys are used to, even the NHLers are used to, do you see it as maybe a factor of guys having issues with it, being more lacking space and it being different? Or do you see it maybe as not exactly an issue for anybody?
Yeah, I see it as being a big issue. The biggest thing about, as you mentioned, when they used to use the Olympic size ice surfaces, the bigger ice surfaces, there were a lot of years where whatever level of competition it was, whether it was the Olympics or the World Hockey Championship, or even the World Juniors, if they were played in Europe on Olympic size rink, Canada and the U.S. always had trouble with that bigger ice surface because you've grown up your entire life being used to something being in this place. Like you can skate around the rink blind and know where you are, but now it's a whole different thing. And yeah, that 3 or 4 feet makes a difference, believe it or not, especially for professional athletes. So it will be a factor, but at least, I mean, if you want a glass half full, everybody's screwed because nobody has played on something smaller than an NHL regulation size ice surface. So it's going to be a learning experience for all teams. It's not like the European players will have an advantage as they formerly did, but it's not great. I mean, how in the heck was there no plan B for this arena not being done? There has to be a plan B. And the biggest fear I would have isn't necessarily that players will back out, because I think a lot of players could lose a hand in an accident and be like, I'm still going to the Olympics though, right? Like that's how badly they want to play. I think it's the NHL Players Union that is going to be the biggest thing. If they step in and go, whoa, we don't like this on behalf of our guys, then you're going to see, I mean, the worst case scenario is you're going to see them step up or the league steps up, and they put pressure on, and the league says, without us, you got nothing. So here's the deal. We're taking over, and we're actually playing our games here, wherever it might be, whatever country it might be. And they could very well do that. I mean, it could be a power move by Gary Bettman, and he certainly loves to make those. But, I mean, it has so much potential for disaster written all over it that it's hilarious. I mean, this isn't going to be the only thing we talk about these Olympics. Did you hear that they're putting like the alpine skiers up in like a temporary trailer park? They've like rented trailers for all of them. But one of their big bragging points was, hey, every athlete will have a personal heater, which is a bragging point because if you recall the most recent Summer Games in Paris, they decided, hey, you know what? We're just not going to give anybody air conditioning. And all of a sudden, teams are bringing their own air conditioners. So they'll have heaters, they'll be in trailers, and that's going to be Olympic skiing. So this is going to be a great show. Let's go, Italy.
Yeah, at the Milan Cortina Winter Olympics coming up again. So there's arenas or playing surfaces are supposed to be used for a full year before being used in the Olympics. The rescheduled test games at this new arena are for the 9th to the 11th of January, basically a month before the women's games start on February 5th and the men's start on February 11th. So again, there's a month. So even if the rink, there's no more hitches, they get everything done, they do their tests for the 9th to 11th, what if things don't go well? What if concessions are messed up or bathrooms are messed up or, again, the playing surface isn't up to scratch or the seating is messed up? They don't have any real time to fix it. They're already in a time crunch. Now you're adding even more stress and even more problems to this new 16,000 seat arena that's going to host NHL players. And JC, I think you make a great point with the NHLPA and I think the NHL. Because again, if I was an owner of Alexander Ovechkin, of Sidney Crosby, of one of the young guys like Macklin Celebrini who could go, Connor Bedard who could go, Matthew Schaefer who could go, I would be very hesitant to be like, man, like, yeah, that's a cool experience and man, that'd be cool for you to go. But like, it just sounds like a really, really bad thing waiting to happen. And I don't want to be you, the one that was hurt, and you to be the one that's hurt and it damaged your career onwards, if not just this season, because, you know, that happens. Guys go down, freak injuries happen, and then, you know, things just never pick up where they used to be. And obviously that's a horrible thing. And an owner wants to do that, especially if they, again, if you're going by an owner's perspective, selfishly, they put a big financial commitment into a player. They really don't want to see that financial commitment go by the wayside and have to, I'll say, waste that money, if you will. So I'm really curious to see how the NHL reacts to this news and how the NHLPA and the NHL owners react to this news, because JC, I don't think the answer is going to be good. I don't, because again, they've fought for years to get them back at the Olympics, and now the first year back, there's rinks too small, rink won't be done news. It's just adding a lot more layers of maybe they shouldn't have came back. As much as I'd love to see them come, you'd love to see them come. We want to see a best on best for the NHL players. We want to see a best on best for hockey. It just doesn't seem like it's going to be an easy sail, if you will. It seems like there's a lot of bumps in the road and a couple icebergs in the water there for that boat to continue sailing. Now, there's just a couple minutes there, JC and Cajun. You know, who do you think the favorite is going into the Olympics? Now that we've gotten over the rink part of it, JC, just a couple minutes. You know, who do you see as the favorite going into it?
I mean, I would like to tell you that Canada is the favorite team, but unfortunately, we don't have a goaltender, or at least we don't know who our goaltender is going to be. I mean, you would hope that Jordan Binnington will come in and do what he did in the Four Nations Cup and prove us all wrong. But he has not had a very good year this year, and he got yanked the other night and went off the ice yelling at his coach. So I don't know if Binner's the guy, and I mean, there are some guys that have had better years, but I don't think it's going to be Canada. I think probably your favorites might be the Americans, to be honest with you. We saw that stacked roster at the Four Nations and how well they did. And I mean, they were one shot away in overtime from winning it. And you know that they learned some lessons there against Canada. That's who you're going to measure yourself up to. And how do we beat that game? Because that's probably our biggest competition. So I would say the Americans.
Yeah, right now, Stuart Skinner, who I believe was on the short list for the goalies, not having a great year. I think Logan Thompson has a great shot right now of being the Canadian starter. Obviously, Jordan Binnington was the starter at the Four Nations. Yeah, definitely a question mark in net right now for the Canadians, JC Cajun. But a minute left. Who do you see as the favorite going into the Olympics when it eventually comes in February?
I think what JC just said, like goaltending is a big question mark for the Canadians. But somehow, some way, even though the advantage is decisively in favor of the Americans, somehow, some way, as we saw in the Four Nations Cup, Canada just finds a way. Somehow, some way. And I think this is going to be one of those instances in which Canada somehow finds a way.
Well, Cage, talk about finding a way. You went from being too dark in your basement to now being lit up like a Christmas tree. It looks like you've ascended. You know, if you wear any more white, I'm waiting for the veneers to come out, like your Matthew Stafford. We mentioned him earlier with those veneers. You're looking a little too light to me in all that light. But anyway, for JC Coots, Cajun, Theru, Thaney Castle, and myself, Spencer Byers, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week on RTV Sports Rap.
Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.
Public transit, garbage pickup, parks and recreation programs, snow removal on your street. How can you stay informed about these and other important local services? Tune to City Council coverage on Rogers TV. See your community leaders at work on Rogers TV City Council coverage.
Are you a passionate content creator ready to expand your audience reach? Do you have unique stories, captivating hobbies, or special interests that deserve a spotlight? Rogers TV is here to amplify your voice within the community. We offer you the platform to broadcast your content to a wider audience. And the best part, it's completely free.